the answers are inside. Yeah, I am the 21st century superhuman. Now is the time. Come on everyone, let's celebrate. We are the children of the sun. I can see you when I look into your eyes. We are the same, we are light, yeah, we are one. Here now, hear my ancient prayer and sing along. We are awakening as one. And we can make a difference. Yeah, we can be the change it takes to make the world.
Hi there, I'm Cary Ellis, author of 21st Century Superhuman. This is our 21st Century Superhuman Show, and this is one in a series called 10 Things You Must Know to Be a 21st Century Superhuman. And today I have with me my good buddy, Alexander Rasol from Costa Rica. Hey, Alexander.
Good afternoon.
And I know you were just out surfing this afternoon. Let's make a bunch of people.
Life's a beach, baby.
Yeah, I know. I love it. I just visited you for 5 or 6 weeks and had so much fun down there. And what a great, way to choose to follow your bliss, to live in your heart. And so after this show, we're going to talk about deprogramming and how we have these programmed responses that come up from our cultural training, from our genetic memory, and how to enter into the now moment and bring ourselves out of those. So Alexander and I have these conversations kind of regularly. So we thought this would be a fun one to just bring into this series because it's really important material. And what will come after this is kind of reprogramming, living from our heart, following our bliss. But today we're going to talk about deprogramming and how do we recognize and start clearing that old data when it comes up, when we're going into these automatic response patterns to things. And we've kind of both been having these discussions lately of seeing different people around us going into these automatic response patterns and wanting to support themselves and ourselves in being clear. So I don't know, Alexander, do you have any thoughts to just jump in with, or
Well, I would just start with saying that the programming of all human beings begins before they're born, if not when they're born, in a process that I learned in university called acculturation. And depending on what culture you're born into, whether it's southern United States or eastern China or northern Japan or middle of Africa, each culture and society has a distinct set of philosophies, theologies, and ways of doing things that are immediately taught to each child after they're born. And so that begins the programming. And, it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's simply the way each culture has figured out in this third dimensional world, matrix world, how to deal best with living in their environment, because each culture is in a different environment, each society, and so has a whole different set of circumstances to adapt to and to thrive in, to learn to survive and thrive in. And so over thousands and thousands of years, they developed different strategies, different attitudes, different perspectives, and different interpretations of their external world, which they program the children to, with their strategies and their philosophies, to deal with and to work through and to succeed with.
Yeah, that's really a great point. And now we're moving into this kind of quantum recognition of our reality, that we are creators. We're moving beyond that just old 3D. We'd call it a 3D kind of programming that says, I need to respond this way in order to survive in this world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what we'd call it instead of 3D. Is there anything else you would call it?
It's survival mentality of the material world.
Right.
There's just basic, a basic approach and philosophy to living life on the planet. But
Right.
like you said, we're now transcending and becoming aware that we're cosmic beings. We're not just, physical beings, like animals here on the surface of this planet, trying to, get by day to day. We're realizing that we as spirit, as souls, we're much greater and grander than that. And so we're transcending our old ways of doing things, our old philosophies, our old limitations, and moving back into our natural state of bliss, of creation, of positive, proactive, creation, and also out off the planet very soon. We now have human beings that are literally living long periods of time off the planet. So we need to deprogram ourselves from what worked in the past, and it worked in the past pretty good, but we're moving beyond that now. So we have to change all the programming so that it works into the rest of the solar system and the galaxy and the cosmos, and adapt it to who we really are, who we're discovering we really are. We really have been all along, but because of the experiment and the program that we got involved in on the planet, incarnating, okay, that's over now. So we got to move back to, and reboot the hard drive, erase all the old programming and reboot the hard drive to an upgrade,
right,
to
upgrade
a new software,
defrag the hard drive and upgrade we really run kind of like
defrag. I like that. Yeah, that's good.
And upgrade the software, upgrade the operating system. So,
the operating system, right? Yeah.
So we're kind of going from survival mechanism in even the modern material world into being more conscious, co-creative beings. And because of that, a lot of times we have automatic responses that happen in relationship to illness coming up, either for ourselves or for a loved one. And this built-in programming responses happen through the media, through television, through an entire culture that's built around us responding in a certain way. Some of the other things I think of programming are living for what we think our parents expected of us, or society expects of us, what we think our parents expect of us, or what we think society expects of us, or even cultural pressure that comes, or what our partner thinks of us, what our partner wants us to be. I mean, I can think of, as a woman, all the things I've done in my life in order to accommodate what I think men want of me in order to like me, like wearing makeup, or, different things that are maybe not really what I want to do, but I've done in order to conform to something. And so I think it's kind of really a big journey to begin unwinding ourselves from this automatic response mechanism that because I've been doing it for a long time, and I consider myself a sort of semi-free person. And then I have wonderful friends like you and other people that are around me here, who I can get into a discussion with. I remember you and I were having a conversation the other day, and I said, I'm being really torn because I feel like I need to do this one thing because of economics. And you said to me, don't do anything because of money. Don't let something outside of you be the driving force. Let your bliss be the driving force. And that's what we're here kind of reminding each other of at this point, because I do see it as a big unwinding from that old matrix program, we'll call it. And one of the reasons we call it the matrix is because it is a certain construct. It's a certain construct of belief systems that maybe our generations lived by, our culture lived by, our family lived by, our outer environment lives by, and is constantly feeding us information about. I mean, just think about something like you're really supposed to wash your hair every day with a certain kind of shampoo. I mean,
yeah, that's real important in my life.
I know, but I mean, or shave with a certain kind of shave. It's kind of like we're by the corporate structure that kind of runs our materialistic world. There's been a lot of things that have developed that are feeding us information that say, in order to be loved, accepted, appreciated, thought you're attractive, thought you're beautiful, to succeed, to be considered successful, these are the ways that you need to do it. And a lot of that, as we're awakening to this following our heart, living our bliss, and just even remembering and figuring out what the heck that is, because we are not programmed. I mean, the true program is to operate that way, but we're having to unwind from a lot of outer programming in order to get to that truth of our being and to begin living from that. So
you bring up an interesting subject. I remember years and years ago, I remember reading about and talking about to a few people, which is the difference between external referencing and internal referencing.
right.
Because what the whole program is we're trained from little kids first, before we even go to school. We're trained, okay, what your parents tell you what you need to do, you know, put on these clothes, brush your teeth, do this, do that, do the other thing. You know, you are the authority. You're told by the authority, which is first your parents, then your teachers, or the priest and ministers, and then etc., and the professors in university, etc. You're told, okay, you do what we say and you'll be successful. Okay, so and so we're trained really to reference what we should do, you know, our choices externally, and say, well, they told me I should need to do this, they told me I need to do that. Okay, instead of going within and referring what brings me the most joy and bliss and what feels the best to me intuitively and also we say spiritually, like it was written about in the Celestine prophecy, what path, you're at a fork in the road, what feels better to you. No, we're told, no, don't listen to that side of yourself. You know, just go with the logical, intellectual things that you were told by your parents, by your teachers, by your bosses, okay, in the corporate world now, the corporatocracy, and et cetera, et cetera. And so that becomes your subconscious programming, how to work through the world, and it is emotionally driven into you. So each intellectual choice, especially when we're children, is emotionally driven into us, because children don't really react with their intellect. They don't learn via their intellect. They learn more via their emotions. And so obeying authority
survival
is emotionally right for survival, because they're little tiny people and their parents are so big. So it's just, they have to learn how to psychologically deal with their parents and conform to what their parents want in order to get what they need, because they can't physically just take from their parents, you know. So, you know, survival mechanism, right? And it's instinct. It's in the hard wiring of the child's brain and structure. So and as their ego develops, they just simply absorb it, and then as adults, it's still there in our subconscious. And so what you've written about and what I've heard many times around, especially recently, is that 95% of most people's reactions in life to their circumstances, to situations, are subconscious. They don't even know why they react in anger or sadness or whatever emotionally to events, and they never analyze why. They never ponder why. They never reflect about why they react certain ways, why seeing a certain color or eating a certain food just, they get the blues. And while other colors and other foods, they get all excited and enthused, or react, or the people's tones of voice. I remember my first wife, there were certain tones of voice that I used. She would just literally, she would lose it. She couldn't handle it. And I wasn't speaking really loudly. I was just speaking really confidently and firmly. She couldn't handle it, you know. And so in the beginning, and those are deep subconscious programs, and those are the things that need to be, first of all, seen. I should say recognized. First, they have to be recognized.
And I think us coming into the now moment, us being present with ourselves in the now, it becomes a hub, I think, for this, to be able to have recognition as things are coming up, as they're occurring.
Well, that's why meditation is so powerful, because really it develops the ability within you to step outside of your ego self, of your ego mind, and step and move away from your subconscious programming a little bit, at least in the beginning, to be able to look back at your emotions and really ponder why you react certain ways to certain things and certain events and certain people and certain sounds, etc., etc. And until you can do that, you are basically stuck in the matrix, because until you can step outside of it a little bit, your programming is going to dominate, and you're just gonna, like my client the other night, he's been the last year and a half, he says he's been going on drinking binges and stuff because he just can't, these emotions come up and these feelings, and he's going through a lot of anxiety, and so he just turns to alcohol, other drugs, etc., to try to dampen the effect, escape what's coming up. But in humanity right now, everything is coming up to be purged and to be released.
And
so,
I would call that the battle between our heart, our bliss, and our programming. It's that it's a battle between the part of us that wants to express who we really are and become who we really are, but who we feel caught in this prison of this outer world that we've got to be responding to all the time.
It's a struggle. It really is. It's a really challenging struggle, but it's something that now is being forced on humanity. And decades ago, I remember reading in a couple of places in when I started reading, spiritual books and things like that. It says, I remember it saying in a couple of authors, it said, right now, if you start right now going through the process, analyzing yourself and going within and your subconscious fears, looking at your fears and rooting them out, etc., etc., believe me, it'll be much easier down the road in time when there will no longer be a choice. Well, we have arrived at the time, in linear time, there's no longer a choice. People can no longer choose to ignore all that stuff. And so those who are keep suppressing it are the ones who are getting cancer, they're having problems, health problems, and because it's wanting to come out, and they're like, no, they're going into denial, they don't want to deal with it, and it just causes a dis-ease.
And I would say even physiologically, we are moving into these greater fields of light as a planet, as a solar system,
that's
as
also
a galaxy, and it's putting pressure on us to wake up to our own true nature. We're being pushed, like anything that's outside of love, outside of our alignment, is kind of being pushed to the surface. And for us to take a look at, by the way, I love the birds. I'm hearing the birds there with you, and they're so beautiful. And just to mention, you have like a little hostel there, which is such a great place. And it was so much fun to get to stay there. And if anybody wants to go to Costa Rica, man, get a hold of Alexander, because
the Ilan tree now is the flowers are coming up. It's that time of the late afternoon. And
oh my God, that was
so wonderful.
So beautiful.
The aroma.
And you've got like little hostel rooms and a couple of apartments. And so it's a great,
which are now on Airbnb. The 2 apartments are now on Airbnb.
Nice. And it's really you've held such a great energy there for like 10 years or something, that it's
Thanks. Since 2005.
Yeah. So it's really a nice energetic place to go to. So I think this, I see it in, friends that get diagnosed with illnesses, or hearing of other people who are having family members. I think there's a lot of, if we're holding back, entering into listening and paying attention to what's coming up for us, then that manifests itself as illness. And a lot of people that have stepped out of the system are kind of having maybe struggles economically. And I listened to Dolores Cannon today for a while, and she's so great. She passed on a year or so ago, but she's just such a cool lady. And she did all this deep hypnosis, taking people into past lives and stuff. And the guy who was interviewing her said, "Oh yeah, what about financially struggling when you really do what you want to do?" And she said, "I'm not struggling." She goes, "My life is filled with abundance because I'm doing what I really, really, really love." And I think I think those are some of the biggest things that come up are health, economics, as far as I think when we start getting into that deprogramming, and when we're having these automated responses come up, and because we go into fear with those two things. And so then when we go into fear, we tend to go into our automatic response. Oh, I was told by the outer world that this will take care of me, so I'm going to go do that. And
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No.
It does, especially now. It just doesn't. The old modalities, the old strategies they're no longer working at all. And you see this globally as well in the global financial system. You know,
Yes.
They used to, this QE crap, printing money out of thin air. It worked maybe 100 years ago or whatever, 50 years ago. It ain't working anymore. It just doesn't work. And if, not that they care so much, the ones that are at the top of the pyramid there, but they just want to keep the party going, the casino thing. But the strategies that the everyday person has used in the past to be successful don't work anymore. So, and at least now in recent years, you have people like Steve Jobs come up and make speeches and say, follow your heart and, follow your dreams, and don't listen to the institutional people. Don't listen to the biorobots. Don't listen to these people that tell you, no, you have to go get a degree in this and an MBA and this and that and the other thing, and then get a job with a big corporation. I mean, he went out there and he said, before he passed, he made these speeches and said, hey, I'm a billionaire. Right. And I didn't do that. I didn't listen to those people. So don't listen. And so that's wonderful. You have all these different people coming out and saying, hey, we've become successful by not doing what our subconscious programming told us what to do. Right. And so, the thing about that I've heard a lot recently is that which is true, it's not so much that we are adding things to our beingness. No, what we're doing is we're peeling off all the cruddy, dark layers of lifetimes and lifetimes and thousands of years that have accumulated around our core, beautiful, blissful self. And so it's more a matter of peeling off the old programming, peeling out the darkness, or as I use the analogy of cleaning out our subconscious septic tanks. And and we're not getting down to the nitty gritty now. And now, a lot of us the septic tanks are cleaned out. It's just a matter of scraping off the residue that's clinging to the inside walls, because and that's intense.
Yeah, even once we've done a lot, we've still got that old program that wants to rear its head. And the more we end up cleaning out that old data, or defragging, or cleaning out that old stuff, and shifting the course of our life to be more in alignment with heart, mind, spirit, that's the truth of our being, the more we do that, we start developing a clear path for ourselves. But those old voices, those old directives or constructs are still going to rise up and want to say, especially Dr. Michael Rice, who wrote the foreword to my book, who put out a big body of work on the ancient Aramaic, says, when the stress is up and the chips are down, that's when our old data starts rising to the surface. And it can be in a relationship, it can be in how we're supporting ourselves, it can be in how we're getting along with others.
And also what's even more alarming to a lot of people is that maybe they're doing a wonderful job, defragging their own hard drives and rebooting their own memory and putting in new parts, et cetera, and working on themselves. And as they really progress fantastically, what happens is that the old programming and the old paradigm comes at them from other people, their family and their friends. And it happened to me. It's happened to me more than once, actually.
Right.
When I moved here initially, my whole family was just shocked.
Right.
And they, trying to get me to not do that because it brings out the fear in them.
Right.
And so, because if you step out of the box, if you step out of the old paradigm and do something radical, quote unquote, it threatens their old programming. And so they go into fear. And so, they pretend that some of them are truly compassionate and truly do care. And they truly, sincerely believe that you're doing something that will lead to harm. Okay, they do.
Right.
There are sincere people, family and friends that love you, that do sincerely believe, their ego selves, that what you're doing may lead to harm to you yourself. But a lot of them just don't want you to do it because the fear in them is coming out, and so it's triggering them, their hot buttons, and bringing stuff up in them, making them look at themselves in their own lives.
Right.
So it you could be doing the most wonderful things, and so anyway. But
and I think
we'll talk about that maybe some other time.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts that come up about that are I think some of this varies by age. I think older generations probably have more deeper programming that they're working on releasing, and a lot of the younger ones, it's almost like they're coming in. Some of them are coming in without as much heavy karma, or they're coming in at a different level of evolution. And I think you see that in your work, and I do in my work when I'm out teaching workshops and you're coaching.
At the Envision Festival, we both saw that.
Definitely. And then the other thing is, the flip side of what you just said is, it's also easy to start projecting our stuff on someone else. You and I have had this conversation the last few days too about me being concerned about a friend who has cancer and is working on it in a various way. I've got one who went the natural route, and then one who defaulted and said, I'm just going to go back into the conventional system. And it's obviously basically probably going to take them off the planet sooner. And everybody's got their soul journey. For us to be projecting into, well, is that right or wrong for another person? We're each kind of growing through the system in the best way we can. The only person we can change is ourselves. There really is no out there. When we see something that's bothering us about somebody else or how they're choosing to do it, we're potentially mirroring some old data within ourselves.
Right. And judging.
And so you're right. And I always say judging, we've got blame, hostility, fear, and then judgment and control are the more subtle ones, And so judging or wanting to control how somebody else is living their life is us stepping outside of love. It's us stepping outside of our hearts. And the greatest way we can change anything is to begin noticing our own stuff when it comes up and going. And we were talking earlier, you're saying you're more focused in where we're headed for, rather than what's in the past.
Where we've gone, where we've left behind.
Yeah. And so as the sooner we can start shedding that kind of stuff and entering into, I'm in the now moment, I can see where I've come to, I can see how I'm playing an old data program, or I'm responding in an old construct way. I'm responding out of the old matrix, out of the pressure of someone or something else directing me to do something, instead of me choosing it from my own heart and spirit.
And there was someone, I had a conversation today or yesterday. Now time is just so flexible now and stretching and condensing. I don't even remember a lot of it, when something happened anymore. But I was having a conversation, and they were saying something along the lines that they saw somebody that had chosen a path that they, from their perspective, was a harmful path, and they said, I felt so sad for that person, so sorry for them. And I'm like, why?
Right.
I'm like, why did you feel sad? They chose that path.
Right.
And they are a sovereign soul just like you.
Right.
So, and they're like, now I remember what it was. It was actually today. And I said, that's their right to choose that.
And they're getting
no reason for you to lower your vibrations and be sad, or upset because of their choice. Why should you feel that's sad for them? To them, it's not sad.
Right.
You know, and why should you allow their decisions make you feel sad? You see, it's what Deepak Chopra and many others, the yogis of India, etc., have talked about for thousands of years, becoming the compassionate, detached, compassionately detached.
Yes.
You're compassionate, and you feel love for those people, and you feel concern, but you are detached from their emotional state and their choices. You know, just, you know, like you say, just, well, that's their choice. Well, I hope it works out for you. You know,
Right. And that is their learning journey as a soul.
that's
And
right.
who can judge the path of another?
That's right. And they need to go through that experience at the soul level to learn. It's like learning not to touch a hot stove, you know.
Right.
Until a child touches a hot stove, you know, mommy and daddy can say, now listen, Johnny, don't touch that hot stove. It'll hurt. Okay? And they're like, they don't necessarily believe their parents until they touch the hot stove. And then they're like, oh, you're right. Okay. I won't touch that stove anymore. But until they do, they're not going to know that it can hurt them.
Right.
And so, like what I did with my first child is that, you know, when she started getting curious about the stove and fire and stuff, and I said, you know, that can hurt you. And she's like, you know, she gives me that look like, I don't know. I think you're just telling me that because you don't want me to touch it, right? And so what I did is I said, you know, I picked her up and I said, come on, give me your finger. And I put it, you know, close, real close. I didn't burn her, but I put it close to the flame. And she's like, okay. Guess what? She never played with fire. She never touched the stove.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
And, you know, because then she knew that I was telling her the truth, that I was sincere. I wasn't just trying to control her, etc. And so this person today, for example, that made this other person I know sad, that he told me, that experience that she created for herself and that attitude she had, her soul needs to go through that experience so that she knows, like the Buddhists say, that that's not going to make her happy.
Right.
And you know, unfortunately, sometimes people have to go through 50 experiences of the same type to figure it out, but for them to get it. But that's their journey.
Right.
That's not yours. That's not ours. It's for them to figure out.
So what would you say are little tricks and tools when we notice the old programming coming up, or how to notice it and then how to release it and let it go and not get
Well, I have a couple of articles in my blog about you know, stopping the mind chatter and being the eye of the storm. And basically the simplest technique is to, or trick, as you say, is to just stop yourself, pull yourself back from the situation. You know, even if it's going on around you, you could be in a loud bar with 100 people, it doesn't matter. Just kind of step back and stop and say, why, and why am I reacting like this? Why am I sad? Why am I angry? Why am I, you know, and just stop your ego from taking you on that ride, all right, on the roller coaster ride, and woof, you know, because if you don't, you can go off and lose it and get into that, you know, develop a worse situation for yourself. So just stop, reflect, you know, step back, reflect on maybe, and try to go within and figure out why what that person said or the situation is sparking this fear, sparking this emotion, this unpleasant lower vibrational emotion that you really aren't comfortable with and don't want to have. And you know, it could be a childhood situation, trauma that you went through. It could be something in adolescence that, you know, that you didn't conform to what the clique wanted you to, the popular people, whatever. I mean, God knows, an old job you had, you know, something happened that was traumatic to you, and so this little programming thing, or something you were taught as a kid in school, you know, your parents, through your religion, of course. There's a lot of stuff that the religions drive into our subconscious.
Right.
You know, if you don't do this, you ain't going to heaven, you know,
Right.
and all this kind of crap, fire and brimstone and
Right.
such. And so that's deeply emotional.
Right.
And so it gets programmed very deeply into the subconscious, way below the conscious level.
And to break that is just, it's tricky.
It's
you know, we
it's
have to,
hard, you
we've
know.
got to
It
kind of keep
takes
chipping.
effort.
It does. And we've got to keep chipping away at it when it comes up. I would say telling ourselves the truth is probably the most powerful thing I know of. Probably, I talk to friends a lot who are maybe in relationships that aren't healthy, and but they're compromising themselves to stay in the relationship because they're loved, because they feel safe, because maybe they were abandoned in their childhood, and so they're still trying to heal that cycle. So we have these we need to notice when what we're doing is out of sync with the truth of our being, how we really feel. And I think being truthful with ourselves and with others, I think for a lot of people, being truthful with others is absolutely terrifying. And being truthful about who we are, or being truthful about our communication, or I think we've developed all these systems to kind of circumvent
Punishment.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
circumvent that comes from because children learn to lie so that they don't get punished,
Right.
and that behavior pattern, that programming, stays with them. And unfortunately, it works a lot.
And think about the myths of sin, and you're going to go to hell, and whether you were even part of a church or not, it's still spread throughout cultures around the world. And even some cultures are still stoning people to death for.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic, and I had to leave the church at 16 because I could not take the hypocrisy,
Right.
and I also couldn't take I saw through the programming. I was like you. I was born awake basically, and I saw through it, and I just knew, and it wasn't. I had to read the Bible. I went to Catholic school as well, and I'm like, wait, what this guy's saying? That's not in the Bible. That's not what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, man.
Right.
This is not. Wait a second. It doesn't jive here. And I just told my mom. I said, I'm sorry. I can't deal with it anymore. I can't. And I left. But most people, out of fear of displeasing their family or their friends, or not being part of that church social group anymore, or et cetera, many different things, they stay in their religion. It doesn't matter what religion it is, by the way, but they stay, with that, and they give lip service to the doctrines and the dogma, but really, outside of Sundays, they're back doing whatever they're doing, and then they go, it's just that being truthful with yourself is scary, because you literally have to disengage from all these social patterns and conformities that you've been programmed all your life to cater to.
That ultimately almost tell you will die if you don't do this. You won't get.
Well, that's the subconscious fear programming.
Very deep.
You'll not only die, but you'll go to hell.
Die or go to hell. You'll
die alone,
or you'll be cast out of the community, or you will
ostracized.
Be ostracized by the family. These are a deep part of what I call the old matrix, and it is a structure of thinking that has run society for a long time. So in this awakening journey, as we wake up, as we become more aware, this is an important thing for us to begin taking apart as we see these things coming up in ourselves, to call it for what it is, to say, wow, I'm in a programmed response pattern. I've got my fear, my survival mechanism is coming up, and I need to go beyond it. I need to take a step beyond the survival mechanism and step into voicing my truth, into noticing how my responses to things are working, and if they're really authentic to me as a person. Am I choosing to go out and do a job just to survive? And a lot of people are getting to the point where they can't do that anymore. And yet then we've got to rebuild what's next. And we're going to talk about that in the next couple of episodes. of this, as far as following our heart and living our bliss.
There's something I'd like to mention that in that one article, now I remembered what the quote was that I used to start that article, and it was from the book Oneness by Rasha. And she brings up the exactly what is programming, what or should I say the effect of the programming is what in that quote I used in Be the Eye of the Storm. It is called, she calls it the emotional response mechanism. And in that paragraph that I quoted at the beginning, it talks about why the emotional response mechanism is there. And you know, when you have a quote negative emotional response, basically what's that saying is that there's something that needs your attention in your subconscious. You know, there's something that's unresolved, there's something that is unhealed that needs your attention, because ideally we should all reach, like the Buddhists call it, the state of imperturbability, where no matter what happens around you, no matter who is yelling at you, no matter how badly you cut your toe, no matter, you know, if your kids are screaming, you got in a car crash, that you should, you know, again, this is the path of self-mastery, you should be imperturbable. You should not have any external circumstances completely discombobulating your internal emotional state, because then you just keep getting jacked around by all these. You watch the news, you get jacked around by that. You get, you know, you drive downtown and you see someone, you know, acting a certain way and you get jacked around by that. You something happens in your life, anything, your mate, your partner, you know, is upset and angry, then you get drawn in. You have external referencing for emotional well-being. As long as you are reacting to all these things and not proacting from within, you are going to get jacked around on the ups and downs and roller coaster ride of this, you know, emotional response mechanism that's built in within you. And whereas, and not recognize its purpose is to simply alert you. Here comes Mama Cat. My cat had four kittens, and here comes Mommy, probably out. Kittens are asleep. She's probably gonna go look to hunt something, maybe. But the emotions are there: the sadness, the anger, the frustration, just to let you know that something is in something internal within you. It needs to be addressed. It needs your attention. That's all.
Get my mic back on here. Absolutely. I totally am with you on that, Alexander. Let's put the links to those blog posts of yours under this video, because I know I really love your writing. It's excellent and always really to the point. And one of the other things that I write about in my book that is an element of this, and it goes back to meditation, Buddhism, whatever systems are teaching us methods of becoming, it's called heart coherence, that the Heart Math Institute puts out. Heart coherence is a state that we want to go into, and we'll talk about that again in our the next couple of episodes on living our bliss and following our hearts. So Alexander, I think we're both kind of losing our light a little bit.
Yes, that too.
But that's all right. So thank you so much.
The external light, not the internal light.
Not the internal light. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. And what I want to encourage people is to have friends that you can have these kind of conversations with. Have them with yourself, and then have friends that you can open up and find out, what is my truth? What is coming up in my being that I'm wrestling with that's kind of pulling me off center? And how do I begin to let that go and begin, you know, cultivating some allies who you can have those kind of conversations with?
Yeah.
Alexander,
and you can do that on your Facebook page, 21st Century Superhuman, you know, Quantum Lifestyle. You have a Facebook page where there are thousands of people that are of like mind, that are working on all of this, that you can people can interact with.
And your coaching is available as well. So we'll put that under the video, and 21stcenturysuperhuman.com. I just want to thank everybody out there in the listening audience so much for being here with us, and keep growing, keep becoming who you are. We're the only ones that we can change. We can only change ourselves. And by changing ourselves, we change the world as we access greater love within ourselves, greater connection to source and to the truth of our being. So thank you all so much. Alexander, I'm sure I'll talk to you soon. Much love to all. Many blessings.
In Lakesh.
We'll see you soon.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Adios.